Good morning, everybody. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I pay my respect to their elders, past and present, their continuing culture and contribution to the life of this region. Thank you also to the Australian Information Industry Association for the opportunity to speak to you today, and it's fantastic to see such a crowd here. I thought this morning I'd talk about three issues, mainly because I think each of them will influence what the Australian government will expect from your industry now and into the future. And they are what users are telling us about government services, what we are doing to address their concerns, and how stage 2 of the government's digital transformation agenda will further drive dramatic reform. And as you can tell, I'm doing it retro. At the outset, I'd like to reiterate that the government's ambition for simple, fast and easy government services remains central to its digital transformation agenda. As you well know, last October, the government agreed a significantly expanded role for the new Digital Transformation Agency. It took on the role and continues the role of the Digital Transformation Office, but the government has effectively since October put all relevant levers into one central agency to accelerate the delivery of its digital transformation agenda. It has created an agency that is involved end-to-end across the life cycle of all ICT and digitally enabled projects across the Commonwealth Government. This means that the DTA will be working with departments and agencies to make sure there is a coordinated and seamless approach taken to user research, design, development, procurement, policy and implementation. These changes well reflect the government's impatience at the pace of change and inconsistent outcomes on major projects. And all of you know that suboptimal outcomes on ICT and digital projects have the potential to dent public confidence, not just in government, but in your industry as well. And we commonly hear a number of concerns replicated by the users of government services. And part of the important role that the Digital Transformation Office commenced and we've continued is a role in really digging in and digging down into what users are looking for. So what are they telling us about government services? Increasingly, there's an expectation by users that government will deliver the same level of service as the private sector. And you only really need to have a look at the banks to see how that's being translated. According to Roy Morgan research, up until January this year, satisfaction level of the Big Four banks' personal customers was at over 80%, which is near record levels. And over the years, those banks have increasingly shifted services online and demonstrated that well-designed online services present an attractive alternative for many of their customers. Government does have success stories of its own to point to where its online service delivery is dramatically improving. For example, the Tax Office's My Tax project in 2014 delivered a whole bunch of improvements which result in a significant reduction in the time and effort needed for people to lodge their tax returns. A new system was delivered, it's safe and secure, and is accessible on smartphones, tablets and computers. And that work, the year following the completion of that work, saw a 70% increase in the number of people lodging their tax online. But it's fair to say collectively, government has struggled on many occasions to meet public expectations. And the AIIA's own recent research shows us that almost all Australians surveyed, and in fact 99%, so pretty much everybody, believed that they would benefit if government used the latest technology for service delivery. However, they ranked government, Commonwealth, state and local, the lowest of all industries at using technology to deliver services. The DTA's own research also gives us some terrific insights about the preferences and needs of the users of government services. And I thought I'd share some of those learnings from our agency today with you to see what will be driving government services in the future and the impact for your delivery of those. So we know that users want to be able to customise their online experience to meet their lifestyle or their personal needs. For example, not surprisingly, people living in regional and rural areas want the option to do more of their business online and avoid travelling long distances to shop fronts. Parents with children want to have the option of doing their business online in the evenings when their children are in bed. People with additional needs tell us that they want to be consulted earlier by government so that when we design our services, we do so with them in mind from the very start of the project. For example, a user can't use a screen reader application on content that hasn't been authored correctly and marked up in the right code. And transgender people say that they would prefer to do their business online as they don't want to face the stigma or judgment they sometimes experience dealing with people face to face. Another common message we hear is that users want information, instructions and messaging that is consistent, clear and easy to understand across all channels that they access. For example, a user's transaction journey for a government service may consist of some steps online, some calls to a call centre, and then a visit to a shopfront for more complex issues. Users tell us that this type of user journey can often be complicated by different terminology being used and different instructions being given. And how well do we really understand those users' journey? Understanding those journeys determines the language, the amount of information, and the level of information that's provided at a particular point in a journey. It's not uncommon for each different element of a user journey to be designed and delivered by different areas of an organisation, or in some instances, a different organisation altogether. For example, a user will be asked to provide a number of details in an online form that they've just provided in an online registration step, and little consideration has been given to where the user has been and where they will need to go next in their transaction journey. And perhaps the most common message we hear in user research is that users shouldn't have to understand government to use a service. Users don't distinguish between governments or government departments. Local, state, federal, ATO, DHS, DIIS, DTA. We're all simply government to our users and they don't need or care to know the difference. Users want a simple and seamless experience where the onus is on them, where the onus isn't on them to read and learn endless details and explanations about the tiers of government and who is responsible for what. It's the government job, in their view, as designers and providers of these services, to build processes and systems that deliver that simple, seamless experience. And finally, we hear users say they want more transparency. A common piece of criticism is that when users submit applications or request information, the requests go into a black hole and there's absolutely no visibility of progress. Users tell us they need to see something that lets them know what's happening, whether that be a time frame or a status update. Some users tell us they're fearful that if they make contact to find out where things are at, it may influence the outcome or determination made on their case. So these are just some of the messages that we learned doing user research, and it is fair to say that user research has not driven a lot of government service work over many years, but it is now front and centre of the way government thinks about its service design and the way my minister and the Parliament and the government itself thinks about these, about making sure that we're doing the research to know what our users want and making sure that we're clear in those processes about what industry needs to deliver with government to provide those types of services that are attractive to users. So what are we doing to address it? The government is spending possibly more on technology than ever before, and this must drive better outcomes for users by being strategic and more agile in our approach. We need to do a lot more, though, than just spend money. A major component of the work of the Digital Transformation Agency, it will be changing how government does ICT and digital, genuinely putting users at the centre of project design, and focusing on making it easier for people to use websites, platforms, applications and digital channels. By working in close partnership with government agencies, we can share our expertise in making these changes happen. Last year, we published the Digital Service Standard, which sets out world best practice for delivering a digital service. All government agencies are required to meet the standards when they're delivering new public-facing services. We're also working in very close partnership with agencies to design, build and deliver new platforms that are reusable across government. Government is increasingly frustrated with the rebuild of capabilities over and over again in different ICT projects. We want to avoid duplication, be more cost effective, and allow better integration of services across government, which ultimately, again, means better services for users. An example of this is our GovPass platform, which aims to make it easier for users to prove who they are when using all government online services. This will address the criticism from users that proving themselves to government is overly complicated and needs to be done every time they want to interact with a different government service. And with GovPass, we're also engaging strongly with the privacy advocates to make sure that we understand their needs and their views. We're also working with a number of state governments as well, so that we can build a authentication and verification platform which is not just a Commonwealth platform but allows people to come in from their preferred service, be that Commonwealth, state, or indeed over time the private sector. In terms of recognising the extent of a user's journey, I think some of the new technology that departments and agencies are using is really helping to remove the problems of inconsistent information. The ATO's virtual assistant, Alex, responds to queries about personal tax, understands conversational language, and learns from questions to improve answers. Hereby, I have addressed the subject of my talk, which you can tell I'm not really addressing. Alex is now, I had to say quantum. I told somebody at work I would say quantum. Alex is now used by IP Australia and learns how clients ask questions, assessing syntax and grammar to deliver the correct information and refining her information when clients indicate she's wrong. I wish they'd do that for me. Department of Human Services has Roxy, which is based on Microsoft Cortana technology, who uses machine learning to answer more than 78% of questions raised by claims processing staff. And the NDIS virtual assistant Nerida will give users a clear idea of what it means to join the scheme, whether they are eligible and what it means for them in the future, and dealing with people with often very complex needs. Government also needs to change how it works behind the scenes. Flexible project delivery in government ICT has traditionally been poor, so it means overhauling the risk-adverse culture of government, which we all know is a difficult but ultimately necessary task. It means transitioning away from big waterfall project management and bespoke software to more flexible, agile approaches. It means continuous improvement and the flexibility to change when changing circumstances, technologies and user research show that we should. It also means building small, multidisciplinary delivery teams to deliver services and breaking up large projects into smaller deliverables. And there's evidence around the world to suggest that these approaches are much more successful. The Standishes Group's 2016 Chaos Report presented some really interesting statistics on the success rate of projects based on their size and their methodology. It found the smaller the team and the shorter the time frame for delivery, the more likely the project was to succeed. Only 1% of grand projects and only 6% of large projects were successful in comparison to 59% of small projects. Across all sizes of projects, agile projects had a 40% success rate and outperformed well waterfall projects, which had an only 13% success rate. So you can see there's a significant margin between the two. And small agile projects performed the best. They had a 55% success rate. So how does that translate into government ICT projects, where I'd have to say we see very large waterfall projects has been the name of the game over many years. In terms of the DTA, we've actually embedded a number of our experts into multidisciplinary teams within other government agencies to help them to implement agile project management, to build their skills capability, to undertake user research, provide content design expertise, and ultimately help those agencies to deliver better services to the public. So there's much still needs to be done. Digital transformation is not just about addressing the public-facing aspects of a service. It requires changes to fundamental, behind-the-scenes operations and infrastructure. And the way to do this is to ensure that government is investing in the right technologies at the right time. And that brings me to phase 2 of the Digital Transformation Agenda, which began last October with the establishment of the Digital Transformation Agency. And this is about improving how government does ICT procurement, which I'm sure is an issue quite close to all of your hearts. ICT procurement policy and delivery will in coming months become the responsibility of the DTA. It positions this agency to have a greater strategic oversight of ICT procurement right across the Commonwealth Government. From the very early stages of technology project proposal, the DTA will have a role in working with agencies to ensure the right decisions are being made about the type of technology and project methodology being considered. This ensures that a project builds in realistic milestones in a staged approach that allows adjustments to be made where needed and reduces the risk of an unrealised investment. The DTA will also have a new Digital Investment Management Office, which will provide ongoing oversight of significant government ICT projects to gauge how a project is tracking, how likely it is to deliver on its promised public policy benefits, its costs and its risks. And this will be the first time in my memory where an agency has been asked to continually oversight the whole ICT portfolio of investment for the Commonwealth Government. Our first task will be to review all major government ICT projects of more than 10 million in value or which have major public-facing transactional services, and that was announced by Assistant Minister Taylor in February. We will be looking at costs, benefits, risks, status, and informing the government and giving them a much clearer and transparent view of what's happening in their ICT portfolio. It will give them a more contemporary picture of what's going on and also early warning signs where things are going off track. We've been asked to deliver this review to the government in June this year, so no pressure on us. But that will be a continuing role. It was always envisaged that the Digital Investment Management Office would be gathering information from agencies and departments and providing ongoing information to government on how their investments are working. In addition to that review, the ICT Procurement Task Force has moved across to the DTA from the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, and as many of you know, is investigating how to make it easier and cheaper for ICT businesses to secure contracts with the Australian Government and to deliver better government services at lower costs. The Procurement Task Force had the opportunity to hear from many of you during its public consultation earlier this year, and indeed we've taken that team with us from Prime Minister and Cabinet, given that they've got that expert background. The task force heard that it's hard to get innovative ICT solutions into government, that there appears to be little strategic coordination in government procurement, and that procurement practices are especially burdensome on smaller businesses. So we expect the task force will complete its work in the coming months and will identify ways to deliver real benefits for business and government alike. On that last point, traditionally small to medium enterprises have faced considerable costs in time and money to participate in panels. Last year, 49% of ICT procurement contracts the government entered into were done via panel arrangements and standing offers, with only 27% done via open approaches to market. Unsuitable and lengthy approval and procurement cycles have meant many small to medium companies have not been able to access opportunities to help transform government services. And all of these changes are designed to address the ad hoc approach that government has historically had to ICT procurement. I'm sure the need for this change in approach comes as no surprise to AIIA members. The AIIA's submission to the inquiry in 2015 on ICT procurement and contract management highlighted a number of issues needing to be addressed by government. This included government tenders requesting specific technology improvements and products rather than allowing industry expertise to provide the best solution. The lack of flexibility in government program management processes to allow for agile digital solutions, and again, small to medium enterprises facing significant costs in terms of time and money when tendering for government work. One of the things I would actually recognise also is that, and this comes through in the work of the task force, is many of us have been here before. Many of us have had the Gershon Review, which came out a few years ago, and other reviews which have found very similar things. So what we want to do with this task force, and with strong support of the current government, is to try and break through on these issues, because they've been holding many of you back and government service delivery back for many years. The DTA's digital marketplace is a new way of procurement that we're testing and trialling, and it's making very good inroads to deliver benefits to small and medium enterprises by offering a new approach to procuring digital services. So the marketplace is end-to-end digital. It brings together sellers and buyers, makes transactions easier and faster, and levels the playing field significantly for small to medium businesses. It has enabled more than 12.5 million in transactions since it was launched in August last year, and small to medium enterprises have accounted for 78% of all transactions on the platform. As well as providing most of the small tenders, smaller businesses have also been tendering for the major services and are now responsible for around 91% of the total value of transactions in the marketplace. If I had longer, I'd talk about skills, culture and capability, because I think that's another area that this agency is working on with the Australian Public Service Commission and working on across government. And I can assure you that, while I don't mention it here, capability building in government departments around digital and ICT delivery is one of the regular conversations I have with my Assistant Minister, as indeed the Prime Minister and the Digital Transformation Subcommittee of Cabinet, who is now taking an absolutely active involvement in looking at all the ICT projects across government, and also how we're building capability to deliver on them. So in conclusion, I've outlined some of the things we've heard from users and from the private sector about how we deliver services and how we manage ICT procurement across government. Inevitably, we must continue to work together if transformation is to happen at the pace that users need and that government wants. The DTA is working to improve issues like risk, procurement, flexibility and agility. This should make it easier over time for AIIA members to harness opportunities and help us get on with the job of delivering better services for users. By working together, we can build 21st century ICT and digital services and put ICT at the heart of making people's lives easier and much more productive. And we can do that in a way that enables local industry to grow and to thrive. The DTA welcomes our continuing engagement with the AIIA and its members as it progresses the Australian Government's digital transformation agenda. Thank you very much.